Jack Donovan dropped his mop and walked straight toward the $65 million jet. "Security!" Patricia screamed. "Stop him right now!" But no one moved, because the janitor, the invisible man who had cleaned their toilets for 2 years, was climbing into the cockpit like he owned it. Camille Ashford's mocking smile froze on her face. She had just told him to fly her jet as a joke, a cruel, thoughtless joke to humiliate him in front of everyone. She didn't know that Jack Donovan had once been Captain Jack Donovan. She didn't know about the combat missions, the medals, the crash that killed his co-pilot, the wife he buried 2 years later. And she had no idea that in 90 minutes she would be crying in the passenger seat, not from fear, but from shame. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. The coffee hit Jack Donovan square in the chest, hot, black, spreading through his gray uniform like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. He didn't flinch, didn't move, just stood there with the mop in his hand, watching the brown liquid drip down his shirt onto the floor he'd spent the last hour cleaning. Patricia Lawson didn't even look up from her phone. "You missed a spot," she said. "And get someone to clean this up. I need another coffee." Jack stared at the back of her head. 2 years, 730 days of being invisible, of being nothing. "Yes, ma'am." He bent down, started mopping again, the same floor, the same stain, the same silence that followed him everywhere in this building. Ashford Private Aviation occupied the top 3 floors of Chicago's most exclusive airport facility. Private jets for billionaires, charter flights for celebrities. Jack knew every inch of it, every corner, every bathroom, every executive office where deals worth millions were signed while he emptied trash cans 3 feet away. Nobody saw him. That was the agreement he'd made with himself when he took this job. Stay invisible, stay quiet, cash the check, go home to Oliver. His son was the only thing that mattered now. Again, Jack looked up. Frank Delgado stood in the doorway of the supply closet, arms crossed, watching him change his shirt. "It's fine, Frank." "That's the 3rd time this month, Patricia." "I said it's fine." Frank leaned against the doorframe. 62 years old, hands like leather, eyes that had seen everything in 40 years of working around aircraft. "You know," Frank said slowly, "I've worked with pilots my whole life. I know what they look like, how they move, how they carry themselves." Jack's hands stopped on the buttons of his fresh uniform. "You walk like a pilot, Jack. You look at aircraft like a pilot. Hell, I've seen you watching takeoffs like a man watching his first love drive away." "I'm a janitor." "No." Frank pushed off the doorframe. "You're a janitor now, but that's not what you are." Jack finished buttoning his shirt, picked up his mop. "My shift ends at 6. Oliver's waiting." He walked past Frank without another word. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people standing. But it was home. Oliver Donovan was 6 years old with his mother's eyes and his father's stubborn chin. When Jack walked through the door, the boy launched himself at his father's legs like a missile. "Dad, Dad, we learned about airplanes today." Jack lifted him up, held him close. Let the weight of the day fall away for just a moment. "Yeah." "Mrs. Patterson showed us pictures. Big ones. She said pilots are heroes." Oliver's face grew serious. "Were you ever a pilot, Dad?" The question hit Jack like a bullet. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you always look at the sky. Mom used to say—" Oliver stopped. "What did Mom say?" The boy fidgeted in his arms. "She said you used to fly. Before I was born. Before everything got sad." Jack set his son down, knelt to eye level. "That was a long time ago, buddy. A different life. But you could fly again, right, if you wanted to?" Jack looked at his son, 6 years old, everything ahead of him, everything to lose. "Some doors close for good reasons, Ollie. Now come on, let's make spaghetti. Oliver's face lit up, the questions forgotten, for now. But as Jack stood at the stove stirring sauce, his hands gripped the wooden spoon like it was a yoke, and in his mind, he was climbing. Always climbing into clouds he would never touch again. The nightmare came at 3 a.m. The same nightmare. Always the same. Nate's face. 24 years old. Terrified. "What do we do, Captain? What do we do?" The alarm screaming. The aircraft spinning. The ground rushing up like a fist. "Pull up! Pull up! Pull up!" Jack sat bolt upright in bed, sweat soaking through his shirt, heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He looked at the clock. 3 hours until his shift. He didn't go back to sleep. He never went back to sleep. The chaos erupted at 6 a.m. Jack was already at Ashford mopping the executive corridor when the doors burst open. Camille Ashford came through like a hurricane made flesh. 43 years old, navy suit, phone pressed to her ear, 2 assistants scrambling behind her. "What do you mean unconscious when? How bad?" Her voice cracked. Jack had never heard that before. "I'm coming. I don't care about the hurricane warnings. I'm coming." She ended the call, threw the phone to Patricia. "Get me a pilot. Now. I need to be in Miami in 2 hours." Patricia's fingers flew across her tablet. "Captain Reynolds is in Seattle. Henderson is in New York. Martinez is on medical leave. I don't want excuses. I want a pilot." "Ma'am, there's a Category 2 hurricane approaching Florida. Most pilots are refusing." "My mother is dying." The words cut through the hangar like a blade. Camille's composure shattered right there in front of everyone. "She's in surgery right now. If I don't get there..." Her voice broke. She turned away, pressed her hand against her mouth. Jack watched from the corridor. Mop still in his hands, water still dripping. Patricia made call after call, each one ending the same way. Unavailable. Booked. "Can't fly into Miami today. Sorry, the weather's too dangerous." Camille's hands were shaking. "There has to be someone. Anyone." Patricia looked at her tablet, then at Camille, her face pale. "Ma'am, there's no one. Every qualified pilot within 300 miles is either committed or refusing the flight." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Final. Jack should have kept mopping, should have stayed invisible, should have remembered the promise he made to himself 8 years ago. But his mouth opened before his brain could stop it. "I can fly it." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Patricia turned first, her face twisted with disbelief. "Excuse me?" "I can fly it." Jack stepped forward, set down the mop. "The Gulfstream G700 in Bay 3. I can get her to Miami." Patricia laughed, sharp, ugly. The kind of laugh designed to wound. "The janitor. The janitor wants to fly a $65 million aircraft." The other assistant, a young woman named Rachel, covered her mouth. Her shoulders shook with barely suppressed laughter. But Camille didn't laugh. She walked toward Jack slowly, heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. "What did you say?" "I said I can fly it, ma'am. I have the hours. I have the certification. I can get you there." Camille stopped 3 feet away. Her eyes scanned him head to toe. The gray uniform, the worn shoes, the mop still dripping beside him. The calloused hands of a man who scrubbed toilets for a living. "What's your name?" "Jack Donovan." Jack Donovan. She repeated it slowly, testing it, tasting it. "And where exactly did you learn to fly a Gulfstream?" "Air Force Test Pilot Division. 12 years. The laughter stopped. Patricia's smile froze. Rachel straightened up. The entire hangar went silent. Camille's eyes narrowed. "Test pilot." "Yes, ma'am." "You're telling me a former Air Force test pilot is mopping floors in my hangar?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" Jack didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The truth was too heavy, too raw, too soaked in blood and fire and screaming metal. Camille studied his face, looking for the lie, looking for the joke. She found neither. "Let me make you an offer, Jack Donovan." She stepped closer. Close enough that he could smell her perfume. Expensive, sharp, like everything about her. "Fly this jet to Miami. Land it without a scratch." She paused. The corner of her mouth curved into something cruel. "And I'll marry you." Patricia exploded with laughter. Rachel doubled over. Even the security guard at the door cracked a smile. The joke spread through the hangar like wildfire. The janitor and the CEO. The mop pusher proposing to the billionaire heiress. Jack stood perfectly still. The humiliation burned through his chest. The familiar heat of being dismissed. Of being nothing. Of being invisible, even when standing right in front of someone. Camille's smile widened. Cold. Triumphant. "Well, what do you say, Captain?" She said the word captain like it was a curse. Like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. Something shifted inside Jack. Something he'd buried 8 years ago. Something he'd locked away after the crash. After the funeral. After the second funeral. Nate's voice echoed in his mind. "What do we do, Captain?" And for the first time in 8 years, Jack had an answer. "I say we should stop wasting time." He met Camille's eyes. Held them. "Your mother's waiting." The laughter died. Jack turned and walked toward Bay 3. Behind him, Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. "Security! Someone stop him! He's delusional!" But Frank Delgado stepped in front of the security guard, blocked his path. "Let him go." "Frank, he's a janitor." "I know exactly what he is." Frank's voice was steady, certain. "And I'm telling you, let him go." Camille watched the exchange, her face unreadable. "Ma'am," Patricia pleaded, "you can't seriously get my bag." "What?" "My bag, the overnight bag. Get it. Now." Patricia's jaw dropped. "You're not actually going to—" "That's an order." Camille walked toward Bay 3, heels clicking against the concrete. The Gulf Stream sat waiting, white and silver. $65 million of precision engineering gleaming under the hangar lights. Jack climbed the stairs. His legs felt strange, heavy, like walking through water. 8 years. 8 years since he'd touched a cockpit. 8 years since Nate. He pushed the thought away, forced himself forward. The cockpit door was open. The seats waited. Leather. Pristine. Exactly like 1,000 cockpits he'd sat in before. Jack lowered himself into the pilot's chair. His hands trembled. Then they stopped. Muscle memory took over. His fingers found the master switch, the battery, the fuel pumps. Each movement precise, automatic, like breathing. The instruments came alive. Lights blinked on, gauges stabilized. Footsteps behind him. Camille appeared in the cockpit doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide. "You actually know what you're doing?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." She moved to the passenger cabin. Sat down. The seat belt clicked. "If you crash my jet," she said, "I'll sue you for 3 lifetimes." "Understood." Jack reached for the radio. His voice came out different. Formal. Professional. The voice of a man who used to command the sky. "Ashford Tower, this is November 77 Hotel Alpha, requesting immediate departure clearance. Destination Miami International, priority medical." Silence on the radio. Then, "November 77 Hotel Alpha. Say again, pilot identification." Jack paused. For 8 years, he had been nobody, a ghost, a shadow mopping floors in a building full of people who never saw him. But not today. "Captain Jack Donovan, Air Force retired. ATP certification number, Alpha Tango 7732. Another pause. "Standby Hotel Alpha." Jack waited. His hands rested on the throttle. Behind him, Camille watched through the cockpit door. He could feel her eyes on his back. The radio crackled. November 7-7 Hotel Alpha. You are cleared for immediate departure. Runway 27. Wind bearing 090 at 15 knots. Be advised Miami is reporting deteriorating conditions. Recommend caution. Roger Tower. Hotel Alpha rolling. Jack pushed the throttle forward. The engines roared to life. The jet began to move. Patricia stood on the tarmac, phone in hand, mouth open. Frank Delgado watched from the hangar door, arms crossed, a small smile on his weathered face. The jet accelerated. Faster. Faster. Jack pulled back on the yoke. The wheels left the ground. And for the first time in 8 years, Jack Donovan was flying. Chicago fell away beneath them. The lake stretched out silver and vast. The buildings shrank to toys. The highways became ribbons of light. Jack leveled off at 12,000 feet. Set the heading for Miami. Checked the instruments. Everything was perfect. His hands weren't shaking anymore. His breathing was steady. His mind was clear. This was where he belonged. He had forgotten. Or maybe he had forced himself to forget. Captain Donovan. Camille's voice came from behind him. She had unbuckled, moved to the cockpit doorway. You should stay seated, ma'am. We might hit turbulence. I've flown 100 times. I'll risk it. She stepped into the cockpit, stood beside the co-pilot seat, but didn't sit. How long were you in the Air Force? 12 years. Test pilot the whole time. Last 8 years. Before that, combat missions. 2 tours overseas. Iraq. Afghanistan. Other places that don't make the news. Silence. Jack felt her studying him, reassessing everything she thought she knew. Why did you stop? The question cut deep, deeper than she could know. Jack's jaw tightened. Things change. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Camille was quiet for a moment. Then she sat in the co-pilot seat. Carefully, like she was handling something fragile. My father was a pilot. Jack glanced at her. First time. He flew commercial for 35 years. United. Captain Robert Ashford. Maybe you've heard of him. I have. He's a legend in aviation circles. Built this company when he retired. Handed it to me 5 years ago. She paused. We haven't spoken since. Why not? Because I changed things, modernized, made decisions he didn't agree with. Her voice hardened. He called me ungrateful, said I was destroying his legacy. Were you? Camille turned to him, surprised by the directness. No. I was saving it. Jack nodded, said nothing. He'll be at the hospital, my father, when I get there. Camille's voice dropped. First time I'll see him in 5 years, and it'll be because my mother might die. She won't. You don't know that. No. Jack checked the altitude. But I know something about waiting too long to see someone. And I know the universe sometimes gives us chances we don't deserve. Camille stared at him. That's a strange thing for a janitor to say. I'm not a janitor right now. No. Her voice softened. I suppose you're not. They flew in silence for 20 minutes. The clouds below them building, gray and thick. The storm waiting. Jack checked the weather reports. Miami was still open, barely. We'll have a window, he said. Maybe 30 minutes. The approach won't be smooth. Can you do it? Yes. Camille accepted this without question. Something had changed in how she looked at him. Tell me something, Captain Donovan. What? The truth. Why is a man with your skills cleaning toilets in my hangar? Jack's hands tightened on the yoke. The memory came without warning. Nate's face. Young. Terrified. What do we do? Captain, what do we do? The alarm screaming. The aircraft spinning. the ground rushing up like death itself. "Captain." Jack blinked. The cockpit snapped back into focus. "I lost someone." The words came out rough, scraped from somewhere deep. "A co-pilot, Lieutenant Nate Reeves, 24 years old, first deployment in my unit. Eager, talented, reminded me of myself at that age." Camille didn't speak, just listened. "Reeves, 24 years old, first deployment in my unit. Eager, talented, reminded me of myself at that age." Camille didn't speak, just listened. "We were testing a new flight system. High altitude, experimental. Something went wrong with the controls. The aircraft entered an uncontrolled spin." Jack's voice flattened. Mechanical. The only way he could tell it. "I tried everything. Every recovery technique, every procedure. Nothing worked. We were falling at 6,000 feet per minute." "What happened?" "I got us down somehow. Emergency landing in a field. The aircraft was destroyed." "And Lieutenant Reeves?" Jack was silent for a long moment. "He didn't survive the impact. The cockpit felt smaller. The air thinner. The investigation cleared me. Equipment failure. Nothing I could have done. They offered me my command back. Promotion. Commendations. Everything. But you didn't take it." "How could I?" Jack's voice cracked. "First time. Every time I looked at a cockpit, I saw his face. Every time I touched the controls, I heard him asking me what to do, like I had the answer, like I could save him." He shook his head. "I couldn't fly anymore, so I stopped." Camille processed this. Her face had changed. The coldness was gone. "And your wife, the assistants, mentioned you're a single father." The familiar knife twisted in Jack's chest. Megan. Just her name hurt to say. "We met in college. She was a teacher, 2nd grade. Loved kids more than anything." "What happened to her?" 3 years ago, driving home from work, rainy night, drunk driver crossed the median." "I'm sorry." "Yeah." Jack stared at the horizon. "Me too." "So you lost your co-pilot, then your wife, and then I had a son to raise alone, on a janitor's salary, because I couldn't get back in the air." Camille leaned back in the seat, let out a long breath. "And I made a joke about marrying you. It was funny. It wasn't." Her voice was tight. "It was cruel, and I'm sorry." Jack looked at her. Really looked. For the first time he saw past the CEO, past the cold exterior, past the woman who had humiliated him in front of everyone. He saw a daughter rushing to her dying mother, a woman estranged from her father, someone carrying her own weight, her own grief, her own loneliness. "Apology accepted." The radio crackled. "November 77 Hotel Alpha, Miami approach control. Be advised weather is deteriorating rapidly. Recommend immediate approach." Jack keyed the mic. "Roger Miami. Hotel Alpha beginning descent. Request vectors for runway 9er right. Hotel Alpha turn right heading 140. Descend and maintain 3000. Expect ILS approach runway 9er right. Right 140. Down to 3000. Hotel Alpha." Jack began the descent. The clouds rose to meet them. Camille returned to the passenger cabin. Buckled in. The aircraft entered the gray. The turbulence hit hard. The Gulf Stream shuddered. Warning lights flickered. Rain hammered the windscreen like gravel thrown by an angry god. Jack's hands moved constantly. Corrections. Adjustments. Fighting the wind. "Hotel Alpha, you're drifting left, of course. Turn right, heading 150. Right 150? The aircraft bucked, dropped 50 feet in a second. Camille gasped. "It's okay," Jack called back. "Just wind shear. I've got it." But the storm was worse than predicted. Much worse. Visibility dropped to 0. The instruments became everything. Jack flew by numbers, by feel, by instinct honed over 1,000 flights. The altitude unwound. 3,000, 2,000, 500. "Hotel Alpha, you're below glide path. Pull up." Jack pulled back. The engines roared. The aircraft climbed slightly. "Hotel Alpha, cleared to land runway 9er right, wind gusting to 45 knots. 45 knots. In a crosswind. In rain. With zero visibility. This was the kind of landing that ended careers. Or lives. Jack pushed the thought away. Hotel Alpha, cleared to land. 500 feet. The rain was a wall of water. 300 feet. The aircraft bucked left. Jack corrected. 200 feet. The runway lights appeared, ghostly, wavering, like spirits guiding him home. 100 feet. Jack crabbed into the wind, held the heading. 50 feet. He kicked the rudder, aligned with the center line. 20 feet. The main gear touched, hard but controlled. The aircraft bounced once. Jack held it, brought the nose down. Reverse thrust. Brakes. The aircraft slowed, slower, slower, and stopped. They were down. Jack taxied to the gate, shut down the engines. For a moment he just sat there, hands still on the controls, heart pounding. He had done it. Camille appeared in the doorway. Her face was wet with tears. "That wasn't a landing," she said. "That was a miracle." Jack unbuckled, stood on shaking legs. "It was physics, that's all?" "No." Camille stepped closer. "That was something else. I've flown with a lot of pilots. None of them could have done what you just did." Jack didn't know how to respond, so he didn't. "Come with me," Camille said. "Where?" "To the hospital." "I should stay with the aircraft." "Please." The word surprised both of them. "My mother's in surgery. My father will be there. And I—" She stopped, took a breath. "I don't want to face them alone." Jack looked at this woman. 12 hours ago, she had mocked him, made him a punchline, treated him like he was less than nothing. Now she was asking for his help. He thought about Oliver, about Megan, about all the times he had faced the darkness alone because there was no one left to stand beside him. "Let me secure the aircraft." Camille nodded, wiped her eyes, walked to the exit. Jack began the shutdown checklist. His hands moved automatically, but his mind was somewhere else. On Nate, on Megan, on Oliver waiting at home with Mrs. Guerrero, on the door that had just cracked open, the door he thought he had closed forever. The hospital corridor smelled like bleach and fear. Jack walked beside Camille, still in his gray janitor uniform. People stared, whispered. A man in work clothes next to a woman in a designer suit. They made no sense together. Camille didn't seem to notice. Her eyes were fixed straight ahead, her hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. "She's in recovery," Camille said. "That's what they told me on the phone. Recovery." She swallowed hard. "But they wouldn't say more." "That's a good sign?" "Is it?" If it wasn't, they would have said more. Camille glanced at him. Something flickered in her eyes. Gratitude, maybe, or just exhaustion. They reached the cardiac unit. A nurse looked up from her station. "Mrs. Helen Ashford, room 412. Family only." "He's with me." Camille's voice left no room for argument. The nurse nodded, pointed down the hall. Room 412 was at the end. The door was half open. Voices drifted out. Camille stopped. Her whole body went rigid. "What's wrong? My father." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can hear him?" Jack listened. A man's voice, deep, commanding, talking to someone about medications and procedures. "You haven't seen him in 5 years." "No?" "He's probably scared too." Camille turned to him, her eyes wet. "You don't know my father. Robert Ashford doesn't get scared. He gets angry." "Same thing sometimes." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she pushed open the door. Helen Ashford lay in the bed, pale but breathing. Tubes connected her to machines that beeped in steady rhythm. and standing beside her back to the door was a tall man with silver hair and shoulders like a linebacker. He turned at the sound. Robert Ashford had his daughter's eyes, blue, sharp as broken glass. "Camille." "Dad." The word hung between them, heavy with 5 years of silence, 5 years of hurt, 5 years of words that couldn't be taken back. Robert's gaze shifted to Jack, scanned him head to toe, the uniform, the work boots, the calloused hands. "Who the hell is this?" "This is Captain Jack Donovan. He flew me here." "Captain?" Robert's eyebrows rose. "In that outfit?" "It's a long story." "I'm sure it is." Robert turned back to his wife. Dismissed Jack like he was furniture. Camille moved to her mother's bedside, took her hand. "How is she?" "Surgery went well. 4 bypasses. She'll need months of recovery." Robert's voice was clipped, medical. "But she'll live." "Thank God." "God had nothing to do with it. The surgeon did." Camille closed her eyes. Jack could see her fighting for control, fighting not to break. "I'm glad she's okay, Dad." "Are you?" Robert turned to face her, his voice rising. "Is that why you haven't visited in 5 years? Why you missed her birthday 3 times? Why she cries every time your name comes up? Dad, please." "No." Robert stepped toward her. "You don't get to walk in here and pretend everything's fine. You abandoned this family for your career, for that company, for—" "I didn't abandon anyone. You pushed me away." "I told you the truth. I told you that you were destroying everything I built. I was saving it. The company was hemorrhaging money. The fleet was outdated. If I hadn't—" "Enough." The word came from the bed, weak, raspy, but firm. Helen Ashford's eyes were open. She looked between her husband and daughter. "Both of you, stop." Camille dropped to her knees beside the bed. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have—" "Hush." Helen's hand found her daughter's cheek. "You're here now. That's what matters." Robert stood rigid, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. Helen looked at him. "Robert, sit down." "I'm fine standing. I almost died. Sit down." Something broke in Robert's face. Just for a second. A crack in the armor he'd worn for so long. He pulled a chair beside the bed, sat heavily, like a man who'd been carrying too much weight for too long. Helen looked at Jack, still standing by the door, still invisible, still. "And who is this young man?" "Captain Donovan," Camille said. "He flew me through a hurricane to get here." Helen's eyebrows rose. "Through a hurricane?" "The weather was deteriorating," Jack said. "We had a window. I took it." "He landed in 45-knot crosswinds," Camille added. "In zero visibility. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Robert's head turned. His eyes narrowed. The dismissal gone. Something else in its place. "What aircraft?" "Gulfstream G700. Crosswind limit on a G700 is 38 knots. "I know." "You exceeded it by 7. "Yes, sir." "That's either brilliant or suicidal." Jack met his gaze, held it. "Depends on the pilot." Silence. Robert studied him with new interest, the same way a man looks at something he's trying to figure out. "Where did you train?" "Edwards Air Force Base, Test Pilot School." Robert's expression shifted. Something moved behind his eyes. "Edwards. Class of '09. "Yes, sir." "I lectured there, '07 and '08, guest instructor for Advanced Instrument Procedures." "I know, I read your book, Flying the Edge, required reading for the program." Robert leaned back in his chair. His whole demeanor changed, the anger still there but something else underneath it. "You read my book." 3 times. The chapter on crosswind techniques saved my life more than once." For the first time, Robert almost smiled. And now you're flying my daughter around in a janitor's uniform. It's complicated. I imagine it is. Helen cleared her throat. Robert, leave the poor man alone. She looked at Jack. Thank you for bringing my daughter home. It's been too long. Jack nodded. You should rest, ma'am. I intend to. Her eyes moved to Camille. But first, Camille, stay. Talk to your father. Really talk. Mom. For me. Please. Camille looked at Robert. He looked at her. 5 years of silence. 5 years of hurt. 5 years of pride standing between them like a wall. I'll be in the waiting room, Jack said. He left before anyone could respond. The waiting room was empty, except for an old television playing news nobody was watching. Jack sat in a plastic chair, stretched his legs, let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Guerrero. Oliver asking when you'll be home. Everything okay? Jack typed back. Flight ran long. Might be tomorrow. Okay to stay. Of course. He's already asleep. Be safe. Jack stared at the phone. His son's face on the lock screen. Smiling. Gap-toothed. Perfect. What was he doing here, 1,000 miles from home? In a hospital waiting room. For a woman who had humiliated him 12 hours ago. But something had shifted on that flight. Something he couldn't name. Something that felt like the first crack of sunlight after years of darkness. He closed his eyes. Just for a minute. The dream came immediately. Nate's face. Young. Terrified. What do we do? Captain, what do we do? The alarm screaming. The ground rushing up. The sound of metal tearing. The smell of fuel and blood and fear. Jack! He jerked awake. Camille stood in front of him. You were talking in your sleep. Jack rubbed his face. Bad dream. The crash. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Camille sat in the chair beside him. We talked. My father and I. And it was hard. We said things. Honest things. She paused. He cried. I've never seen my father cry. First time for everything. I'm staying the night. Maybe a few days. Until she's stable. Okay. The jet needs to go back to Chicago. The company needs it. I can fly it back. Camille shook her head. That's not what I'm asking. She turned to face him fully. I'm asking you to stay. Jack blinked. Stay? Here. In Miami. Until I'm ready to go back. Camille, I have a son at home. I know. I'll arrange for him to come here. Mrs. Guerrero too if she's willing. First-class flights. Hotel suite. Whatever they need. Why? Camille was quiet for a moment. Her hands folded in her lap, her eyes on the floor. Because for the first time in 5 years, I feel like something might be okay. And you're part of that. We met 12 hours ago. I know. She looked up at him. And in those 12 hours, you've shown me more about courage and integrity than anyone has in years. She paused. I meant what I said on the jet. About owing you an apology. About being cruel. You already apologized. Words are cheap. I want to do something real. She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded paper. When we get back to Chicago, I want you to read this. Jack took the paper. Didn't open it. What is it? A job offer. Senior pilot position. Ashford Aviation. Jack's chest tightened. I'm a janitor. You're a test pilot who's been hiding for 8 years. There's a difference. I can't fly anymore. You flew today. That was different. How? Jack looked at the paper in his hands, felt its weight. Heavier than it should have been. When I quit, I made a promise to myself. No more cockpits. No more risking leaving Oliver alone. And mopping floors is safer. It doesn't kill people. Camille's voice softened. Jack, what happened to Lieutenant Reeves wasn't your fault. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. Then why does it feel like a lie? The question hung between them. Raw, honest, unanswered. Camille had no answer. No one ever did. Jack stood. I should find a hotel. Stay at my father's place. Your father? He offered. Camille's voice carried something Jack hadn't expected. He wants to talk to you, about Edwards, about flying. She paused. About what it takes to come back from losing someone in the air. Jack went still. Your father lost someone. His co-pilot, 1987, engine fire over the Pacific. Mike Patterson. They'd been flying together for 15 years. Camille's voice dropped. Dad didn't fly for 2 years after that. Then he came back. Flew for another 25 years without a single incident. How? He said he realized something, that Mike wouldn't want him to stop, that the best way to honor him was to keep flying, to be better, to save the lives Mike couldn't. Jack looked at her. This woman he'd known for less than a day, who somehow understood things about him that he'd never told anyone. One night, he said. I'll stay one night. Camille smiled. Small. Genuine. The first real smile he'd seen from her. One night. Robert Ashford's house was sprawling. Aviation memorabilia everywhere. Jack stood in the guest room looking at framed photographs. Robert in his United uniform. Robert shaking hands with presidents. Robert beside aircraft of every era. A knock on the door. Come in. Robert entered. Changed out of his suit into a polo shirt and khakis now. Looked almost human. Getting settled. Yes, sir. Thank you for... Drop the sir. You're not in the military anymore. Robert moved to the window. Looked out at the darkness. Camille told me about your co-pilot, Lieutenant Reeves. Jack tensed. I told her about Mike, Robert continued. 1987 seems like yesterday some days. Other days it feels like a different lifetime. How did you get past it? Robert turned. Who says I got past it? Jack waited. I didn't get past it, Robert said. I got through it. There's a difference. I don't understand. Past means it's over. Done. Behind you. Robert walked to a framed photo on the desk. 2 men in pilot uniforms. Arms around each other's shoulders. Through means you carry it with you. Every flight, every takeoff, every landing. Doesn't that make it worse? No. It makes it meaningful. Robert picked up the photo. Held it like something precious. Mike Patterson. Best pilot I ever knew. Better than me if I'm honest. The day he died, I wanted to die too. What changed? His wife, Maria. Robert set down the photo. 3 months after the crash, she showed up at my door. I thought she was going to scream at me, blame me. I was ready for it. Hell, I wanted it. What did she do? She hugged me. Told me Mike would be furious if I quit flying. Said he'd haunt me for the rest of my life if I wasted the gift he saw in me. Robert's voice cracked, just slightly, just enough to show the man underneath the legend. She was right. Mike would have been furious. He loved flying more than anything except Maria. To throw that away because of grief, it would have been an insult to everything he believed in. Jack absorbed this. Let it settle. My wife believed the same thing, he said quietly. Megan, she always said I was born to fly. Camille told me she passed. 3 years ago, car accident. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Jack looked at his hands. Me too. So you lost your co-pilot, then your wife, and then I had a son to raise alone, and I couldn't get back in the air. Robert nodded slowly. She left me a letter, Jack said. He didn't know why he said it. The words just came out. Megan, I found it after the funeral. Never opened it. Robert's eyebrows rose. Why not? Because I knew what it would say, that I should fly again, that I should stop hiding, that Oliver needed to see his father whole. Jack's voice cracked. And I wasn't ready to hear it. Are you ready now? The question cut deep, deeper than anything Camille had asked, deeper than anything Jack had asked himself. I don't know. Then maybe it's time to find out. Robert walked to the door, paused. Get some sleep, Captain. Tomorrow, if you want, I'll show you something. What? Robert smiled, first genuine smile Jack had seen from him. The first aircraft I flew after Mike died. I keep it in the hangar out back. Old Cessna 172. Nothing fancy. But it's where I learned that flying wasn't about forgetting the dead. It's about honoring them. He left. Jack stood alone in the guest room. The photographs stared down at him. All those pilots. All those flights. All those lives lived in the sky. He pulled out his phone, found the contact he'd been avoiding. Mrs. Guerrero, can you do something for me? Of course. What do you need? In my bedroom, top dresser drawer. There's a white envelope, Megan's handwriting on the front. Can you take a picture and send it? Silence on the other end. Of course. Give me 5 minutes. Jack sat on the bed, waited. His phone buzzed. The picture was blurry, but he could read Megan's handwriting. For Jack. When you're ready. He stared at it for a long time, traced the letters with his eyes. Her handwriting, her words, her love still reaching out from beyond the grave. Then he typed. Don't open it. I'll read it when I get home. But thank you. Is everything okay? Jack thought about it. About the flight. About Camille. About Robert. About the door that had cracked open after 8 years of darkness. I think it might be, for the first time in a long time. He set down the phone, lay back on the bed. Tomorrow he would fly with Robert. Tomorrow he would learn if he could carry the dead without being crushed by them. But tonight, he let himself remember Megan. Not the accident, not the funeral, not the empty bed and the silence that followed. Her laugh, her smile, the way she would look at him when he talked about flying like he was describing magic, like he was showing her a world she could only glimpse through his eyes. You were born for the sky, baby, she used to say. Don't you ever forget that. He hadn't forgotten. He had just been too afraid to remember. The Cessna was older than Jack. Robert pulled back the hangar doors the next morning, revealing a white and blue aircraft that looked like it belonged in a museum. 1965, Robert said. Bought her the day after Mike's funeral. Flew her for the first time 3 weeks later. 3 weeks. Couldn't do it sooner. Kept walking to the hangar, sitting in the cockpit, then walking away. Robert ran his hand along the wing, gentle, like touching an old friend. But eventually the need to fly was stronger than the fear. Jack walked around the aircraft. The paint was faded but clean. The propeller gleamed. She's still airworthy. Annual inspection last month. Flies like a dream. Why keep her? Because she reminds me. Robert opened the cockpit door. Every time I look at her, I remember what it felt like to be so broken I couldn't move. And then I remember what it felt like to move anyway. He gestured to the pilot's seat. Get in. Jack hesitated. This isn't a G700. No autopilot, no fancy instruments. Just you and the sky. Robert's voice was firm. If you can fly this, you can fly anything. Jack climbed into the left seat. The cockpit was cramped. Basic gauges. Analog everything. Nothing to hide behind. Robert settled into the right seat. I'm not checked out on small aircraft anymore, Jack said. I am. I'll handle the legal side. You just fly. Jack looked at the instrument panel. Simple. Honest. Start the checklist, Robert said. Jack's hands moved. Muscle memory. Master switch. Fuel selector. Mixture rich. Clear prop, he called. He turned the key. The engine coughed. Sputtered. Caught. The propeller spun into a blur. The sound was different from a jet. Rougher. More immediate. He could feel every cylinder firing. Taxi to runway 24. Robert said. Jack released the brakes. The Cessna rolled forward. His feet worked the rudder pedals, awkward at first, then smoother. They reached the runway, empty except for them. "Your aircraft," Robert said. Jack pushed the throttle forward. The engine roared. A small roar, nothing like a jet, but real, alive. The Cessna accelerated, 50 knots, 60, 70. Jack pulled back on the yoke. The wheels left the ground, and suddenly everything changed. The noise fell away, 1500. Below Miami spread out in morning light. The ocean glittered. The Everglades stretched green and endless. "How does it feel?" Robert asked. Jack couldn't answer. His throat was too tight. "First time I flew after Mike," Robert said. "I cried for 20 minutes. Just circled the field crying like a baby. Couldn't help it." Jack blinked. His vision was blurry. "There's no shame in it," Robert continued. "You're not just flying, you're coming home." Jack leveled off at 3,000 feet. The Cessna hummed, steady, faithful. "I've been so angry," he said. The words came without planning. At the aircraft that killed Nate. At the drunk driver who killed Megan. At God, the universe, whatever. Just angry. Anger's easy. It's a wall you can hide behind. I know, but I didn't know how to stop. You don't stop. Robert pointed out the window. See that cloud? The one shaped like a fist. Jack looked. A cumulus formation. Tight. Bunched. That's what anger looks like. Tight. Dense. Ready to explode. Robert pointed higher. Now look at that one. The thin, stretched one. A cirrus cloud. Wispy. Spread across the sky. That's what anger becomes when you let it go. It doesn't disappear. It just expands. Becomes part of something bigger. Jack watched the clouds. The fist. The wisp. How long did it take you? Years, and I'm still working on it. Robert shrugged. But that's the point. It's not about finishing. It's about trying. Every day. Every flight. Jack turned the Cessna. Banked gently. The wing dipped toward the ocean. "My son doesn't know I can fly," he said. "I never told him. Why not? Because if he knew, he'd want me to do it, and I wasn't ready to explain why I couldn't. Maybe it's time to show him instead of explaining." Jack thought about Oliver, 6 years old, asking about airplanes, asking if his father was ever a pilot. "Megan left me that letter," Jack said. "She wrote it before she died, told Mrs. Guerrero that one day I'd fly again." Smart woman. The smartest. Jack's voice broke slightly. She saw things in me I couldn't see in myself. That's what good partners do. They hold the vision when we lose it. They flew in silence for a while. The Cessna carved through the morning air, smooth, pure. "I want to read the letter," Jack said finally. "When I get home, I want to read it." "Good. And I want to think about Camille's offer, the pilot position." "Even better." Jack looked at Robert. "You're her father. Shouldn't you be warning me off? Telling me I'm not good enough?" Robert laughed. First real laugh. "Son, I watched you land a G700 in conditions that would have made most pilots wet themselves. My daughter trusts you. My wife likes you. And you read my book 3 times. He shook his head. "If anything, I should be warning her that you're too good." Jack didn't know how to respond. "Take us back," Robert said. "And when we land, I'll tell you something about Camille. Something that might help you understand why she needs someone like you." Jack turned toward the airport. The Cessna descended. The landing was rusty, a small bounce, but safe. They taxied back to the hangar, shut down the engine. In the silence that followed, Robert spoke. "Camille's been alone for a long time. Oh, she dates, goes to galas, has 100 people around her every day, but alone in the way that matters." "Why?" "Because she watched me push everyone away after Mike died. Watched me become hard, cold, To protect myself. Robert unbuckled his harness. And she learned it. Learned that vulnerability was weakness. That letting people in meant getting hurt. He climbed out of the aircraft, looked back at Jack. But today she let you in. A janitor she'd mocked. A stranger. She let you see her scared. Crying. Asking for help. Robert's voice dropped. That's not nothing, Captain. That's everything. I'm not looking for a relationship. Neither was I when I met Helen. Neither is anyone when they meet the person who changes everything. Robert walked toward the house. Paused. Turned back. But here's the thing about change. It doesn't ask permission. It just happens. And you either fight it or flow with it. He disappeared into the house. Jack sat in the cockpit alone, the instrument panel dark, the silence complete. He looked at his hands, the same hands that had mopped floors for 2 years, the same hands that had landed a jet in a hurricane, the same hands that had held Megan as she died, that had carried Oliver through his first steps. They were capable of so much more than he had allowed them. He climbed out of the Cessna, walked toward the house. Tomorrow he would fly home. Tomorrow he would read Megan's letter. Tomorrow he would tell Oliver the truth. And maybe, just maybe, he would take the first step toward who he was meant to be. The flight back to Chicago was different. Camille sat in the co-pilot seat this time. Robert had convinced her to take lessons years ago. She knew enough to monitor instruments. "You're different," she said as Jack leveled off at cruising altitude. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you set something down." "Maybe I did." "My father." "Partly. And the Cessna. And just time, I guess." Camille nodded. Didn't push. "I thought about your offer," Jack said. "The pilot job. And I need time. I have to talk to my son. Read something important. Figure some things out." "Take all the time you need." "You don't even know if I'll say yes." "I know." Camille looked at him. "But something tells me you will. When you're ready." Jack couldn't argue with that, because something told him the same thing. They landed in Chicago as the sun was setting. Frank Delgado was waiting by the hangar. "Heard you made quite an impression in Miami," Frank said. "Word travels fast." Instantly. "Patricia's been losing her mind trying to figure out how a janitor landed a G700 in a hurricane. What's she saying? That you got lucky. That Camille's lost her mind. That the company's going to crash and burn if they give you a pilot position. She knows about the offer. Everyone knows." Frank glanced toward the building. "Camille made sure of it." Jack looked at Camille. She shrugged. "I wanted it official. No more hiding. No more pretending you're something you're not." The words hit Jack somewhere deep. No more hiding. No more pretending. That was exactly what he had been doing for 8 years. Hiding from the sky. Pretending to be a janitor. Living a life smaller than he was meant for. "I need to get home," he said. "Oliver's waiting." "I'll have a car take you." Camille touched his arm. "Think about the offer. And Jack?" "Yeah." "Whatever you decide. Thank you. For everything." He nodded. Walked to the waiting car. The drive home felt like crossing into another world. The same streets. The same buildings. But he was different. Mrs. Guerrero was dozing on the couch when he walked in. She woke immediately. "You're back." "Sorry it took so long." "Don't apologize." She stood, gathered her things. "Oliver's asleep. Been asking for you all day." "Thank you. For everything." Mrs. Guerrero paused at the door. "That envelope, the one from Megan, I found it. It's on your dresser." "I know." "Are you going to read it?" Jack took a breath, deeper than any breath he had taken in years. "Tonight. I'm going to read it tonight." Mrs. Guerrero smiled. First time he had ever seen her smile like that. Warm. Hopeful. "Good. It's been waiting long enough." She left. Jack walked to Oliver's room, cracked the door. His son lay curled on his side, stuffed elephant under his arm, breathing slow and steady. He sat on the edge of the bed, watched his son breathe. "I'm sorry I was gone," he whispered. "But I'm back. And things are going to be different now. I promise." Oliver stirred, didn't wake. Jack kissed his forehead, stood. Then he walked to his bedroom, to the dresser, to the white envelope with Megan's handwriting. "For Jack. When you're ready." His hands shook as he opened it. 3 pages. Her handwriting. Neat. Clear. So achingly familiar that his chest hurt just looking at it. He sat on the bed, started reading. "My love, if you're reading this, it means 2 things. First, that something has happened to me. Second, that you're finally ready to hear what I've been wanting to tell you for years." Jack's vision blurred. He wiped his eyes, kept reading. "I know you stopped flying because of Nate. I know you blame yourself, even though everyone says it wasn't your fault. And I know that no matter what I say, you'll carry that weight until you decide to set it down." He could hear her voice, like she was sitting beside him, like she had never left. "But here's what I need you to understand. You are not your worst moment. You are not the crash. You are not the failure." His throat tightened. "You are the man who held me when I cried. The man who stayed up all night with Oliver when he was sick. The man who works a job he hates just to keep us safe." Tears fell onto the paper. He didn't wipe them away. "You are brave. You are strong. You are exactly the man I fell in love with." He had to stop. Had to breathe. The words were too heavy. Too true. "And one day when you're ready, I need you to fly again. Not for me, for Oliver. He needs to see his father whole. He needs to know that mistakes don't define us, that failure isn't final, that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward anyway." Jack thought about Oliver, asking if his father was ever a pilot, asking why he always looked at the sky. "I wish I could be there when you get back in the cockpit. I wish I could see your face when you remember who you really are." His hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold the paper. "But if I can't, I need you to know this. I am so proud of you. Not for what you achieve, but for who you are. For the man who keeps trying even when it hurts. For the father who loves our son more than anything. For the pilot who will fly again when the time is right." He was sobbing now, quietly, in the darkness, alone. "The sky is waiting for you, baby. And so is the life you deserve. All my love forever and always. Megan." Jack read the letter again, and a third time. By the second reading, the tears had slowed. By the third, he understood what she had been trying to tell him. He wasn't broken. He had never been broken. He had just been waiting. Waiting for permission. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for someone to tell him it was okay to live again. Megan had given him that permission 3 years ago. In a letter he had been too afraid to open. There was a postscript at the bottom. He had almost missed it. "P.S. When you tell Oliver about your flying days, tell him I knew you'd find your way back. Tell him his daddy is a hero, not because he never falls, but because he always gets back up." Jack set down the letter, walked back to Oliver's room, sat beside his son's bed. "Oliver?" He shook him gently. "Wake up, buddy." Oliver's eyes fluttered open. "Dad, you're home. I'm home. And I have to tell you something." Oliver sat up, rubbed his eyes. "What?" Jack took a breath, deeper than any breath he had taken in his life. "I used to be a pilot, a long time ago, before you were born. I flew jets. Big ones, fast ones." Oliver's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? But something bad happened and I stopped flying. I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of flying again. Of losing people I love." Jack's voice cracked. "Of not being there for you." Oliver was quiet, thinking, processing. Then he said, "But you flew to Miami. Mrs. Guerrero told me. You flew a big plane in a storm." "I did." "So you're not scared anymore?" Jack considered the question. Really considered it. "I'm still scared, but I'm going to try anyway." Oliver smiled, that gap-toothed grin that looked so much like Megan. "Mom said you would." Jack's heart stopped. "What?" "Before she went to heaven. She told me that you used to fly, that one day you'd fly again. She said I should be proud of you when it happened." Jack pulled his son close, held him tight. "Are you proud of me?" "Yeah, Dad." Oliver's arms wrapped around his neck. "I'm super proud." They stayed like that for a long time, father and son, holding on to each other in the darkness. When Jack finally let go, something had shifted. The weight he had carried for 8 years. Not gone, but lighter, transformed. "Go back to sleep, buddy. Will you fly again for real?" Jack looked at his son, at Megan's eyes in that small face. "Yeah," he said. "I think I will." Oliver smiled. Lay back down. Within seconds, he was asleep. Jack walked to the window, looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there beyond the city lights, the stars were shining. Millions of them, each one a destination he might someday reach. He pulled out his phone, found Camille's number, typed one word. "Yes." 3 dots appeared. Then, "I knew you would. See you Monday, Captain Donovan." Jack smiled. First real smile in longer than he could remember. Monday morning arrived faster than Jack expected. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror staring at a face he barely recognized. Same eyes, same jaw. But something had shifted underneath. Oliver appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand. "Dad, are you nervous?" "A little." "Don't be. You're the best pilot ever." Jack smiled. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Oliver went back to brushing his teeth. Conversation over. Confidence absolute. The drive to Ashford Aviation felt different. Same route he had taken for 2 years. Same traffic. Same buildings. But he wasn't heading to the supply closet. He wasn't picking up a mop. He was going to fly. Frank Delgado met him at the entrance, grinning like a kid on Christmas. "Look at you, new uniform and everything." Jack looked down at himself. Navy flight suit, Ashford Aviation logo on the chest, captain's insignia on the shoulders. "Feels strange." "Looks right." Frank clapped him on the back. "Come on, Camille's waiting." They walked through the hangar. People stared, whispered. The janitor who flew through a hurricane, the invisible man who became a captain. Jack kept his eyes forward. Let them stare. Camille was in the briefing room, tablet in hand, coffee on the table. "Captain Donovan, right on time." "Ms. Ashford." "Camille, we discussed this." "Old habits." She smiled. That small, genuine smile he was starting to recognize. "Sit down. We have a lot to cover." The next 3 hours were a blur of paperwork protocols and procedures. Medical certification, license verification, insurance forms, background checks. "Your Air Force record is impressive," Camille said, scrolling through her tablet. 2 distinguished flying crosses, Medal of Valor, commendation for exceptional performance under combat conditions. That was a long time ago. 8 years isn't that long. She looked up. The FAA requires a requalification process. Flight hours, simulator tests, check rides. Normally takes 6 months. "How long do I have?" "I can push it to 8 weeks, maybe 6 if you're exceptional." "Why the rush?" Camille hesitated, set down the tablet. "There's an opportunity. The World Aviation Expo in Dubai. 3 months from now. They want a demonstration pilot, someone who can showcase precision flying for international clients. And you want me? Orion Industries wants you. They saw the footage from Miami. Jack blinked. What footage? The tower recorded your approach. 45-knot crosswinds. 0 visibility. Perfect landing. Camille pulled up a video on her tablet. It went viral in aviation circles. 3 million views and counting. Jack watched himself land the Gulf Stream. From the outside it looked smooth, effortless. He remembered it feeling like barely controlled chaos. I didn't know. That's what makes it impressive. You weren't performing, you were just flying. The door burst open. Patricia Lawson stood in the doorway, face red, hands shaking. You can't be serious? Camille's expression went cold. Excuse me. Him. Patricia pointed at Jack. You're making him a captain, the janitor. Former test pilot, former Air Force captain, distinguished service record. He mopped our floors. And now he'll fly our jets. Is there a problem? Patricia's mouth worked. No sound came out. Because if there is, Camille continued, her voice dropping to ice, you're welcome to submit a formal complaint in writing to HR, where it will be filed appropriately. The threat was clear. Patricia's jaw tightened. The board won't approve this. The board already has. Unanimous decision this morning. My father recommended him personally. Patricia stared at Jack, pure hatred in her eyes. This isn't over. She left. The door slammed behind her. Camille let out a breath. I'm sorry about that. She doesn't like me. She doesn't like anyone who threatens her position. And you, Captain Donovan, are very threatening. I just want to fly. I know, but in this world, nothing is ever that simple. The training began that afternoon. Ashford's simulator was state-of-the-art. A perfect replica of the G700 cockpit mounted on hydraulic systems that mimicked every motion. Jack strapped in. The instructor, a former Navy pilot named Commander Lisa Park, ran through the basics. Your Air Force hours count, but civilian procedures are different. We'll start with standard operations. Takeoff, landing, navigation. Then we'll move to emergency protocols. Understood. Any questions? How hard are the emergency tests? Hard enough that most pilots fail the first time. Commander Park's voice was matter-of-fact. The Level 5 simulation has a 70% failure rate. It's designed to break you. What happens if I fail? You train more, try again. Eventually most people pass. And if I don't? Then you don't fly for Ashford. Simple as that. Jack nodded, gripped the yoke. Let's begin. The first week was humbling. Jack had forgotten how much he had forgotten. Procedures that had been automatic now required conscious thought. Reactions that had been instantaneous now lagged by crucial seconds. He failed his first simulated approach, and his second, and his third. Commander Park was patient but direct. You're thinking too much. Your hands know what to do. Your brain is getting in the way. I'm trying. Stop trying. Start trusting. Easier said than done. Every time Jack touched the controls, Nate's face flashed in his mind. Every alarm triggered memories of screaming metal and spinning horizons. At the end of the first week, Camille found him in the hangar, late, alone, staring at the Gulf Stream. Rough day, rough week. She stood beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Frank says you're improving. Frank's being kind. Frank doesn't know how to be kind. He's being honest. She paused. What's wrong? Jack didn't answer for a long moment. I keep seeing him. Nate. Every time something goes wrong in the sim, he's there, asking me what to do, like I have the answer. Do you? I didn't then. I don't now. Camille turned to face him. My father told me something once about Mike Patterson, his co-pilot who died. He mentioned him. He said that for years Mike appeared in his dreams every night. Same question, same fear, same guilt. What made it stop? It didn't stop. It changed. Camille's voice softened. Mike stopped asking what to do. Started telling my father what he was doing right. Jack went still. The ghosts don't leave Jack. They just change what they say. He looked at her. This woman who had mocked him, who had offered him a chance, who kept showing up when he needed someone. Why do you care so much? About what? About me? About this? You could have hired any pilot in the country. Why me? Camille was quiet for a moment. Because I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear, who see my money, my position, my name, not me. And I'm different. You looked at me in that cockpit, really looked, and you weren't afraid, you weren't impressed, you just saw me. She smiled, sad and small. Do you know how rare that is? Jack didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. They stood there in the empty hangar, the Gulf Stream silent between them. Get some rest, Camille said finally. Tomorrow, we start instrument procedures. Yes, ma'am. Camille. Camille. She walked away. He watched her go. Then he went home to Oliver, who was already asleep, and lay awake until dawn thinking about ghosts and second chances. The second week was better. Jack stopped fighting his instincts, let his hands move without conscious direction. The simulator responded. The failures became fewer. The recoveries became faster. Commander Park noticed. Whatever you did over the weekend, keep doing it. I stopped thinking. Best thing a pilot can do. By the end of week 3, Jack was passing standard procedures consistently. Takeoffs, landings, navigation, emergency descents, all within parameters. And something else had changed. Nate's voice in his head was different now, not panicked, not pleading, just present, commenting. Nice recovery. Little steep there, Captain. Now that's flying. Jack started talking back, quietly, under his breath. It felt crazy. It felt right. The day of the Level 5 simulation arrived. Jack woke before dawn, made breakfast for Oliver, drove him to school. Good luck, Dad. Thanks, buddy. You're going to pass. I know it. How do you know? Oliver smiled, that gap-toothed grin. Because Mom told me last night, in my dream. Jack's throat tightened. What did she say? She said to tell you to remember what you're flying for, not away from. Oliver hugged him. I don't know what that means, but she said you would. He ran into school. Jack sat in the car for a long time. Flying for, not away from. He had spent 8 years flying away. From Nate. From Megan. From who he used to be. Maybe it was time to fly toward something instead. The simulator bay was crowded. Jack hadn't expected an audience, but there they were. Board members, engineers, pilots. Patricia stood in the back, arms crossed, waiting for failure. Camille was there too, her face calm, but her eyes betrayed her. You don't have to do this today, she said quietly. We can reschedule. No, it's time. Jack. Camille. He met her eyes. I'm ready. She nodded, stepped back. Commander Park was waiting by the simulator. You know the scenario. Dual engine failure at 12,000 feet. Complete electrical failure. No hydraulics. You have 4 minutes to bring it down safely. I know. 70% of pilots fail this. The ones who pass usually have 10 attempts behind them. This is your first. I know. Park studied him. Why are you so calm? Because my son told me something this morning. Something my wife said in his dream. What was that? That I should fly for something, not away from it. Park was quiet for a moment. That's either the wisest thing I've ever heard, or complete nonsense. Probably both. Park almost smiled. Get in the simulator, Captain Donovan. Jack climbed in, strapped the harness, put on the headset. The cockpit was dark, waiting. He closed his eyes, breathed deep. Nate's face appeared. But different this time. Not panicked, not asking questions, just there, steady, calm. "You've got this, Captain." Jack opened his eyes. "Ready when you are." The simulation began. Normal operations, standard altitude, steady flight. Then everything went wrong at once. The master warning screamed. Both engine fire lights illuminated. The electrical panel went dark. "Engine 1 fire, Engine 2 fire, complete electrical failure." The words came automatically, training taking over. Jack shut down both engines. Activated fire suppression. The simulator shuddered as the hydraulics died. Hydraulic failure. Manual controls only. The yoke went heavy. Every input required physical force. No assistance. No automation. Just raw flying. Altitude 12,000, descending. Jack trimmed the aircraft for best glide. Scanned the instruments. The few that still worked on battery backup. Glide ratio established, looking for landing options. The simulation showed terrain below. Mountains, forest. One narrow valley with something that might be a road. Targeting the valley. 2 miles out. The altitude unwound. 10,000. 8,000. 6,000. The aircraft wanted to roll left. Jack fought it. His arms burned. 4,000 feet. The valley was closer, but not close enough. Too high, deploying speed brakes. The aircraft slowed, dropped faster. The angle was wrong. 3,000 feet, alarm screaming, warnings flashing. "What do we do, Captain?" Nate's voice. But not panicked this time, curious, like he genuinely wanted to know. Jack answered out loud. "We fly, that's what we do." He adjusted the pitch. Let the aircraft sink, trusted the physics. 2,000 feet. The valley opened below him. The road was visible now, narrow, rough, but long enough. Lineup established, committing to landing. 1,000 feet, 500, 200. The ground rushed up. Jack held the nose, kept the wings level, felt the aircraft wanting to stall. Not yet, not yet. The wheels touched, hard. The aircraft bounced. Jack held it down. No brakes. Hydraulics were gone. He used aerodynamic drag. Let the speed bleed off naturally. The aircraft slowed. Slower. Slower. And stopped. Silence. The alarms went quiet. The simulation froze. Jack sat there. Hands still on the yoke. Breathing hard. Commander Park's voice came through the headset. "Time 3 minutes 47 seconds. All parameters within acceptable limits." Pause. Simulation passed. Jack closed his eyes. "Good job, Captain." Nate's voice, proud this time. "Thanks, Lieutenant," Jack whispered. "Couldn't have done it without you." He climbed out of the simulator, legs shaking, but standing. The observation room had erupted. Camille was crying. Frank was cheering. The board members were on their feet, and Patricia was walking out, her face a mask of barely contained fury. Camille reached him first, threw her arms around him. "You did it! You actually did it!" "Told you I would." "You told me nothing. You just showed up and passed a test that breaks everyone." She pulled back, looked at him. "How do you feel?" Jack thought about it, about Nate, about Megan, about 8 years of hiding. "Like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be." Frank clapped him on the back. "Drinks are on me tonight, the whole hangar." "I have to pick up Oliver." "Bring him too. He should celebrate with his old man." Jack smiled. "Yeah, he should." The celebration lasted until midnight. Oliver fell asleep on a couch in the break room surrounded by mechanics and pilots who had adopted him as a mascot. Mrs. Guerrero had come too at Camille's insistence and spent the evening telling everyone who would listen about what a good father Jack was. Camille found Jack on the rooftop, same spot where everything had started, where she had made her cruel joke, where he had decided to prove her wrong. "Some party," she said. "Someday." She stood beside him, looking out at the runway. "Dubai is confirmed, 3 months from now. The board approved it this afternoon." Because I passed the simulation. Because you passed it on the first try. That's never happened before, not in the level 5. Jack absorbed this. What happens now? Now you train, really train, advanced maneuvers, precision flying, everything you need to put on a show that'll make the entire aviation world take notice. And if I mess up, then you mess up in front of 40 countries and we deal with it. Camille shrugged. But you won't. How do you know? She turned to him, her eyes bright in the darkness. Because you flew for something today, not away from it. I saw it in there. Something changed. Jack thought about Oliver's words, about Megan's message, about Nate's voice in his head. My son told me something this morning, something my wife said in his dream. What? To remember what I'm flying for, not away from. Camille was quiet for a moment. What are you flying for? Jack looked at her, really looked, like he had in the cockpit over Miami. I used to think I was flying to escape, the ground, the ordinary, the life everyone else lived. He paused. Then I stopped flying because I was trying to escape something else. The guilt, the failure, the weight of everyone I'd lost. And now? Now I'm flying for Oliver, for Megan's memory, for every kid who thinks their dreams are too big. He took a breath. And maybe for you. Camille's breath caught. For me. You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You gave me a chance when everyone else saw a janitor. He met her eyes. I don't know what that means yet, but I know it means something. She was quiet for a long time. My whole life, she said finally. People have seen what I could do for them. My money, my connections, my name. No one's ever said they wanted to do something for me. Maybe they just didn't know how to say it. Or maybe they didn't mean it. I mean it. Their eyes met, held. Dubai is 3 months away, Camille said softly. A lot can change in 3 months. A lot already has. She smiled. That small, genuine smile that transformed her whole face. Get some sleep, Captain Donovan. Training starts at 0600. Yes, ma'am. Camille. Camille. She walked toward the elevator, paused, looked back. Jack? Yeah. Thank you for seeing me. She disappeared into the building. Jack stood alone on the rooftop. The city spread below him, the stars above. Somewhere in the darkness a plane passed overhead, red lights blinking. Climbing toward destinations unknown. He watched until it disappeared. Then he went downstairs, gathered his sleeping son, and drove home. The weeks that followed pushed Jack to his limits. Commander Park designed a training regimen that would have broken most pilots. 6 hours in the simulator, 2 hours of physical conditioning, 4 hours of flight theory and procedures, every day. No breaks, no mercy. Dubai isn't a vacation, she told him. It's a performance. Every pilot in the world will be watching. Every mistake will be analyzed. Every success will be questioned. I understand. Do you? Because if you're not ready, you'll embarrass yourself, and Ashford, and everyone who believed in you. I won't embarrass anyone. Prove it. He proved it, day after day, flight after flight. The maneuvers they demanded were beyond anything Jack had done in the Air Force. Precision turns at exact altitudes, vertical climbs that pushed the aircraft to its limits, approaches at angles that seemed impossible. But Jack learned, adapted, improved. The ghost of Nate stayed with him, not haunting anymore, just present. A co-pilot in his mind who commented on every maneuver, every decision. Nice recovery. Little steep there, Captain. Now that's flying. Jack started talking back, quietly, under his breath. It felt crazy. It felt right. Oliver noticed the change. You smile more now, Dad. Do I? Yeah, like you used to, before Mom went to heaven. I feel different. Good different. Good different. Oliver nodded, satisfied. Mom would be happy. I think she is, buddy. I think she is. Camille visited the training sessions when she could, which was often. More often than a CEO should have time for. The staff noticed. Frank noticed. Patricia definitely noticed. She's falling for him. Patricia told the board members at a meeting Jack wasn't supposed to know about. The janitor. It's unprofessional. It's embarrassing. It's none of your concern. Robert Ashford's voice. He had flown in from Miami specifically for the meeting. His presence silenced the room. My daughter runs this company. Who she chooses to spend time with is her business. Captain Donovan has proven himself more than capable. The discussion is closed. Patricia's face went white, then red. Sir, with all respect. The discussion is closed. It was closed. But Patricia didn't forget. Jack could see it in her eyes every time they passed in the hallway. The hatred. The waiting. She was planning something. He just didn't know what. 2 weeks before Dubai, the answer came. Jack arrived at the hangar to find a crowd gathered around the main briefing room. Pilots, mechanics, administrators, all staring at the television mounted on the wall. Former janitor at Ashford Aviation, now set to represent the company at the World Aviation Expo in Dubai. Jack's heart stopped. The news anchor continued. Sources claim that Donovan left the Air Force under mysterious circumstances following a fatal crash. The footage cut to a photograph. Young. Official. A military portrait. Nate Reeves. Lieutenant Nate Reeves, killed during a test flight, was reportedly under Donovan's command. Questions are being raised about whether Donovan is truly qualified. Frank pushed through the crowd. Turned off the television. Everyone back to work. Now. People dispersed slowly. Reluctantly. Their eyes lingered on Jack. Camille appeared beside him. Her face pale. My office. Now. They walked in silence. Past the staring faces. Past the whispers. Into the elevator. Up to the executive floor. Camille closed the door. Patricia. She's the only one who would leak this. The only one with access to your personnel file. Camille's hands were shaking. I'll fire her today. No. What? Don't fire her. Jack, she told the truth. His voice was flat, controlled. I was Nate's commanding officer. He did die under my watch. Those are facts. But the way she presented them doesn't matter. The story's out. Firing her won't change that. It'll just look like we're hiding something. Camille stared at him. You're protecting her. I'm protecting you. And Ashford. And the Dubai demonstration. Jack met her eyes. If you fire her now, the media will say you're covering up. They'll dig deeper, find more, make it worse. So what do? We tell the truth. All of it. The equipment failure, the investigation, the findings that cleared me. Everything. That's risky. It's honest. And honest is all I have. Camille was quiet for a long moment. You're not the man I thought you were. No, I'm the man I was always supposed to be. It just took me 8 years to remember. She crossed the room, stood in front of him. The press conference is in 2 hours. Are you ready? No, but I'll do it anyway. Why? Because that's what brave people do. Because that's what my son needs to see. Camille nodded, took his hand. I'll be right beside you. I know. The press conference was chaos. 50 reporters, 100 cameras, questions shouted from every direction. Jack stood at the podium. Camille on his right, Robert Ashford on his left. Captain Donovan, how do you respond to allegations that you're unqualified for the Dubai demonstration? I respond with facts. Jack's voice was steady, calm. My Air Force record is public. 12 years of service. 2 distinguished flying crosses. Medal of Valor. Test pilot certification from Edwards Air Force Base. And the crash, Lieutenant Reeves,